What happens when a married woman sleeps with her own best friend just to win a stupid bet and prove she is still that girl? How is a husband supposed to react when the truth walks into his living room the same night and he has to choose between shouting and using the law? Can someone like me really keep saying it was just a dare when the answer shows up as divorce papers in a public lobby? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Morrigan Lark, and people think I ruined my marriage over a stupid bet. They say it like that. Stupid bet. Like it was nothing. Like it was everything. They hear one line, she slept with her best friend just to win, and they decide they know the whole story. They call me names, they call my husband a saint, and they act like life is that simple. Good man, bad woman, roll credits. It did not feel that simple inside my head. Inside, it felt like years of tiny cuts. Jonah coming home tired, talking about students and exams instead of me. Jonah saying he was not in the mood again. Jonah asking why I needed tight dresses and late nights with Rowan if I was married. In my mind, all of that added up to one big message. You are boring now. So when my friends joked that Rowan would choose me over his own girlfriend, when they said I could make him fall with one night and prove I still had it, something in me answered yes. I told myself it was just a dare, just a game. It stopped being a game when Jonah found out that same night. The night everything really began, it was not a wild party or some huge fight. It was just a normal weeknight in our small apartment kitchen, the kind of night people post online as cozy. If they had seen us then, they would have thought we were fine. Jonah came home late from school. He dropped his bag near the door, kissed Ellie on the top of her head while she colored at the table, and walked straight to the sink to wash his hands. I watched him from the counter, where I was cutting vegetables, thinking how he always seemed more present for his students than for me. He asked how my day at the clinic had been. I said it was the same as always, phones and smiles and people complaining about the wait. He nodded and said his day was full of test papers and meetings. I wanted more than that. I wanted him to look at me and say I looked good, to ask who I had talked to act like my life was interesting. Instead, he asked if I had booked Ellie's dentist appointment yet. I felt like a personal assistant, not a wife. I told him I had it under control. Inside, I listed another tiny mark against him. We ate dinner at the table, the three of us. Ellie chatted about a game at recess. Jonah corrected her math when she talked about points. I watched the way he smiled at her, soft and patient, and a part of me hated that he did not save that same gentle energy for me. When he finished eating, he rinsed his plate and put his mug on the far side of the counter, away from mine. 2 mugs, one at each end, like they did not know each other. Later, after we put Ellie to bed, we ended up in the bedroom. I wanted to feel close. I leaned against him and said it had been a long time since we had done anything just for us. He said he was tired and had essays to grade. He said the school had been short-staffed and he was not in the mood for anything heavy. I heard those words like a door closing in my face. I told him other husbands manage both work and affection. I said I felt like a roommate. He replied that he was doing his best, that he was carrying a lot, that I knew what the last few months had been like. He asked why I could not see that. I felt like he was asking me to be grateful for being ignored. I said he always had an excuse. He tried to pull me into a hug, but by then I was stiff. I pulled away and grabbed my phone. I messaged my sister Tess and told her Jonah had said no again. She wrote back quickly and said he sounded like an old man and that I needed a real night out. She said I was wasting my best years on a man who fell asleep over papers. I smiled at the screen and wrote to my best friend Rowan next. I told him Jonah was buried in exams and that I felt invisible. Rowan replied that Jonah did not know what he had. He said if he had a wife like me, he would come home happy every day. It was a simple line, but it warmed me. I thought about how Jonah had not said anything like that in months, maybe years. While I was texting, Jonah moved to the small desk in the corner of our bedroom. He opened his laptop and pulled a folder from his bag. The screen lit up with a spreadsheet. I saw rows with dates and short notes, but not much else before he shifted his body to block my view. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing household things and school schedules. He sounded calm, almost flat. I rolled my eyes and said he spent more time making lists than fixing anything real. He said lists helped him keep track. He did not push back more than that. Sometimes I wished he would shout at me so I could point and say he was the problem. Instead, he just went quiet. I left the bedroom and sat on the balcony with my drink. The city lights made everything look softer. I messaged Rowan again. I told him Jonah said he did not like me going out at night with Rowan so much. Rowan asked why. I said Jonah had asked why I needed tight dresses and a male best friend when I was married. Rowan replied that Jonah sounded insecure. He said he trusted me, that he knew I would never cross a line unless I really wanted to. That last part stuck with me. Tess called me on video. She asked if Jonah was still being boring. I said yes. He was grading papers while his hot wife sat alone on the balcony. Tess laughed and said she had been telling her bar friends about my strict husband. She said they could not believe a man could be so uptight with a wife like me. She said if I was single, I would have my pick. That made me feel like maybe I had made a mistake marrying safe. We talked about Rowan too. Tess said every girl knew when her male best friend would say yes if she asked. She said she was sure Rowan would drop his girlfriend for me. I said that was silly. She said I should test it. She said I should make it a bet. One night, one chance, prove he would choose me. She said I would win easily. I laughed, but it sat in my chest like a seed. When I came back inside, Jonah was no longer at the desk. I found him in the small spare room we called the guest room, even though nobody stayed there much. He had moved some of his books in. His laptop was open. On the screen, I saw another spreadsheet with initials and dates. On the nightstand beside him was a small notepad with our bill due dates. When he noticed me, he moved his hand over the laptop trackpad and minimized the window. I asked if he was hiding something. He said he just did not like people looking over his shoulder while he worked. He said he was trying to make sure we were stable if anything happened. I laughed and said nothing ever happened in our life except boredom. As I turned to leave the room, I heard the sliding sound of a drawer closing. It ended with a small click, like a lock. I looked back. He had pushed a desk drawer in with his knee. I asked what was in there. He said it was just personal papers and that everyone deserves some privacy. There was a new tightness in his voice, but he still did not raise it. I went back down the hall, phone in my hand. It buzzed. A new message preview from Rowan slid across the top of the screen. He wrote that he had been thinking about what Tess said and that he had an idea for a game we could play, something to prove a point. A text preview from Rowan about a game lit up my phone as Jonah's desk drawer clicked shut behind me. The next morning, I woke up feeling half guilty and half excited. That mix is dangerous. It makes you feel alive and wrong at the same time. Jonah was already up, sitting at the table with his laptop open and a stack of papers. Ellie was still in her pajamas, eating cereal and humming. I poured coffee and watched him tap at the keyboard. I asked if he had slept in the guest room. He said the bed was closer to his desk and that he had a lot of work. He said I snored when I was tired. I told him that was a cheap excuse. He did not argue. He just kept typing. I noticed the mugs again. His by the sink, mine near the stove. Separate corners, like we were roommates labeling shelves. I told myself I was reading too much into it, then also told myself it was a sign. I can hold two opposite ideas at once when it suits me. After I dropped Ellie at school, I went to the dental clinic. The reception desk is my little stage. I get to smile, smooth things over, act friendly. People tell me their worries, and I hand them forms. It is boring on paper, but I make it my show. Nadia was already there, sorting files. She looked up with that look that says, "Tell me everything." I rolled my eyes and told her Jonah had spent the night hunched over spreadsheets instead of me. I said he was married to numbers now. She laughed and asked if I had at least had a good chat with Rowan. I said Rowan actually listened when I talked, unlike some people. During a quiet hour, we sat in the tiny break room with our coffees. I told Nadia that Jonah did not like me going out in tight dresses, that he said he felt weird about me spending so much time with a male friend. I made it sound like he had delivered a long, angry speech. In reality, he had asked a few calm questions, but that version did not make me look as trapped. Nadia tilted her head and asked if I had ever thought about whether Rowan would choose me if I were single. I said, of course he would, half joking. She grinned and said she bet he would drop his girlfriend if I snapped my fingers. Another assistant who was making tea said that would be a fun bet. She said people forget married women still have options. That word hit me, bet. It turned Tessa's late-night joke into something sharper. I said, in my most casual voice, that my sister already thought Rowan was secretly in love with me. I said we joked about testing it. Nadia leaned forward and asked what I meant. I told her that if I really wanted to, I could probably get Rowan into bed with just one night and some effort. I said I would never actually do it, of course. It was just talk. Nadia raised an eyebrow and asked what Jonah would say about that. I shrugged and said Jonah would never know. I said he was too busy grading essays. Inside, I felt a small thrill at the idea that there was something in my life he did not control. My phone buzzed. Tess had sent a message in our sister chat. She wrote that she had told her bar friends about the Rowan bet, and they all said I would win easily. She said we should put some real stakes on it, like a weekend trip. She wrote that Jonah could be the punishment if I lost. No nights out for a month. I laughed out loud. Nadia asked what was funny. I showed her Tess's message, the part about the stakes. Nadia shook her head but smiled. She said my life sounded like a show. She said I should be careful, though, because some men did not come back from things like that. I said if Jonah could not handle a little fun, that was on him. Around lunchtime, the clinic slowed down. I sat at the desk scrolling through my phone. Rowan had replied to my messages from the night before. He wrote that the idea of a game had been stuck in his head. He said if there was a bet, I would win without even trying. He said that was the problem. That line made my heart skip a beat. I typed back that everyone seemed very sure he would fail the test. He replied that it was unfair to call it failing if he had wanted me for years. I told myself it was just words. Words do not count, I thought. They are like smoke. Just then, the clinic door opened. Jonah walked in with Ellie. She had a small paper from school in her hand. He said he had forgotten to leave the spare car key at home and thought he would drop it off. He looked tired but put together. He asked how my day was going. I said it was fine, busy. I made it sound like I had no time for anything. While we talked, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He took it out to silence it, and I saw the screen for a second. A new calendar reminder flashed up. Meeting, personal 8:40 a.m. for the next morning. I frowned and asked what that was. He said it was nothing, just a personal meeting, and that everyone at his age needed check-ins. He did not say with whom. I noticed a folder sticking out of his bag with household written neatly on the tab. I teased him about labeling things like an old man. He said it helped him keep track. He did not invite me to look inside. That annoyed me, even though I was the one keeping secrets. After they left, I opened a new group chat on my phone with Tess and Rowan. I called it Fun Plan. I told them I was seriously thinking about the bet. I wrote that I was tired of feeling like a boring wife. Tess answered almost right away with laughing emojis and said we should set rules. She wrote that if I could get Rowan to sleep with me once, I got a weekend away with her. Rowan wrote that he was scared to even type his answer, but that he was not made of stone. I looked around at the waiting room. Nobody needed me for the next few minutes. I typed that I was in. I wrote that I could prove to myself I was still that girl and that Jonah would never know. The words felt like a door opening. A bad door, maybe, but still. In the middle of this, my clinic manager walked by. On my screen, the group chat pinged with a new message from Tess saying Jonah was the stakes and calling him a boring prize to give up. The preview lit up big and bright. The manager glanced at my phone, then at me. She said she wanted to talk later about phone use at the desk. I locked the screen and slid the phone under a folder. My heart beat faster, part fear, part thrill. It felt like the story was starting to move on its own now, and I was in the middle of it. Our fun plan group chat pinged with Tess calling Jonah the stakes in the bet, just as my clinic manager slowed beside my desk and asked to speak with me later. The night of the bet felt like a test I had already passed before we started. That is how full of myself I was. I told myself it was just proof of what I already knew, that if I had stayed single, men like Rowan would have lined up, and Jonah should be grateful I had chosen him. Tess met me at a rooftop bar first. The air was cool and smelled like city and cheap perfume. The lights over the rail made our drinks glow. She squealed when she saw my dress, tight and short, and said Jonah would have a heart attack if he saw it. I said that was the point. Rowan arrived a little late. He wore a simple shirt and jeans, nothing special, but I noticed the way he looked at me. He stopped for half a second, eyes traveling down, then up again. I told myself that pause was my win already. We ordered drinks. Tess raised her glass and said tonight was bet night. Rowan shifted in his chair and asked if we were really doing this. I laughed and said it was just a joke between friends, that nobody had to do anything they did not want. Tess said the rule was simple. If Rowan admitted he would leave his girlfriend for me, I won. She added with a wink that extra points if it went further. Rowan's ears went red, but he did not walk away. I sent Jonah a photo of the sunset from the rooftop. I cropped out Tess and Rowan. I told him we had arrived safe. He wrote back that he hoped I had fun and not too many drinks. He ended with a little smile emoji. I stared at that small face for a second. It did not feel like enough. We moved to the club after dark. The music there was loud, the kind that hits your chest. Lights flashed and made everyone look blurred and younger. Tess dragged me to the dance floor. Rowan followed, a bit awkward at first. Soon we were in a moving crowd, arms brushing, bodies close. I danced between them, turning so my back pressed against Rowan sometimes, and my face turned toward Tess. When songs changed, she leaned in and shouted jokes about warming him up. I tossed my hair and laughed. People around us stared, but I took that as proof I still had it. Jonah arrived later, like he had said he might. He does not like clubs, but he came because I asked. He found us on the edge of the dance floor. His shirt was neatly pressed, like he dressed for church rather than a club. I ran over and hugged him, a little too tightly, to show everyone he was there. I wanted him to see the attention I was getting. He asked quietly how many drinks I had had. I told him to stop being a teacher for one night. I said we were just having fun. He looked at Rowan and Tess, then at me. He said to be careful. I told him if he could not handle a small bet, that was his problem, not mine. We moved back into the crowd. Tess started recording short videos on her phone. She filmed me dancing with Rowan, laughing with my head back. Rowan's hands hovered near my waist, then rested there more often. Each time, Jonah watched from the side, holding a beer he barely sipped. I saw him, but I decided not to care. At one point, the DJ slowed the music. A soft song came on. Tess shouted that couples had to dance. She pushed Jonah toward me, laughing. I took his hands, but then pulled Rowan in too, like a joke. People nearby laughed and pointed. I spun away from Jonah and let Rowan catch me. It was supposed to be funny. In my head, Jonah would roll his eyes and shrug. Instead, his face went blank. Later, Rowan and I slipped out to the smoking patio. Neither of us smoked, but it was quieter out there. We leaned against the railing. He said he felt strange about the bet. He said it was all fun until he remembered Jonah was real and not just a character. I told him Jonah barely noticed me these days. I said he spent his nights with spreadsheets and students and moved to the guest room without even asking how I felt. I said I needed to feel wanted by someone. Rowan said I was dangerous when I talked like that. He smiled, but his eyes were serious. I stepped a little closer. I asked if he would pick me if things were different. He said there was no point answering that. I pressed again. Finally, he said that if the world reset and I was free, he would choose me in a second. I called that my win. I told myself the bet was already done. But winning did not feel like enough. That is the ugly part. I felt a pull to prove something deeper, to myself more than to Tess or anyone else. I said we should go somewhere quieter to talk. He hesitated, then agreed. We told Tess we were going to the parking garage for air. She raised her phone and filmed us walking off, laughing. Behind us, I could hear a few people cheering and someone shouting about paying up the bet. The parking garage was oddly bright but empty. Our shoes echoed on the concrete. We stopped near Rowan's car. He asked again if this was a good idea. I said we were just talking. Then I kissed him. I will not pretend there was no choice. I leaned in first. It started slow, like something we might have backed away from. Then it did not stop. It turned into something physical, real, not just a dare. It happened there, in the dim light, on worn car seats. No cameras, no audience. That should have made it more serious, but in my twisted little logic, it made it easier to hide. Driving back to the club, my heart raced. I told myself it was just the bet, just a box ticked. I told myself it did not really count because there were no feelings, even though there were. When we walked back in, Tess saw us right away. She aimed her phone, the flash popping for a second as we pushed through the crowd. My hair was messy, my lipstick smeared a little. She grabbed my wrist and asked in a low, loud voice if I had won already. People near us heard that and started laughing. Jonah, standing by the bar, turned his head. He saw Tess's phone raised, saw Rowan behind me, saw my face. One of our friends shouted that Jonah owed us a weekend away now because Rowan failed the loyalty test. The words floated over the music like something sharp. I watched Jonah's expression change. It did not twist in anger. It just emptied. All the small lines smoothed out. He put his beer down and looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. Tess yelled for a toast. She lifted her glass high and told everyone the bet was done, and I had proven my point. People clapped and whistled. Phones came up to record. Someone turned their camera toward Jonah, waiting for his reaction. For the first time that night, I felt a drop of cold fear under my skin. As Tess shouted for a toast to me winning the bet, her camera flash caught Jonah's blank face, while someone near the bar recorded his reaction. On the way home from the club, the car felt quieter than the parking garage we had just left. Tess sat in the front, scrolling through her videos, laughing to herself. Rowan had taken a cab. I was in the back seat with my heels off, my feet on the floor mat. Jonah drove, hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, eyes on the road. I tried to talk. He answered in short phrases, like a man reciting facts. I said the bet was silly and everyone had taken it too far. He said nothing for a while. Then he asked if I had slept with Rowan in the garage. Just like that. No curve, no soft start. I felt my stomach turn. I laughed. I said he was being dramatic and paranoid. I said people love to exaggerate. I told him Tess was just talking big. He asked very calmly if I was sure I wanted to lie. That word, lie, made me angry. I said I was tired of him treating me like a suspect instead of a wife. He did not push. He just drove. At home, Ellie was asleep at Marianne's. We were supposed to pick her up the next morning. The apartment felt like someone else's place. Jonah dropped his keys in the bowl near the door, then walked straight to the guest room. He did not slam the door. He closed it gently, which somehow hurt more. I stood in the hallway, waiting for him to come back out and yell or demand more answers. He did not. After a minute, I heard the soft whir of his laptop fan, the faint clack of keys. Then, a low mechanical sound started. Grind, pause, grind. It took me a second to recognize the shredder we kept in the corner. Paper in, thin strips out. I walked to the door and knocked. The shredder stopped. He opened the door a little. The room smelled like warm paper and printer toner. On the desk were a few neat stacks of documents, some clipped, some in a small trash bag already shredded. His laptop screen showed a spreadsheet. I saw a row with tonight's date, and something that looked like initials before he minimized it. I asked what he was doing. He said he was cleaning out old clutter. He said he needed to be organized. I told him it was creepy, the way he was acting like some spy, making files. He said being prepared was not creepy. He said some people just preferred facts. I wanted him to scream at me or cry or throw something. Instead, he stayed level. It made me feel weirdly unstable, like I was the only one not on solid ground. The next morning, we picked up Ellie from Marianne's house. Marianne handed her over with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She said Ellie had slept fine. Then, when Ellie ran ahead to the car, she leaned closer and asked why Jonah had left their place early the night before with such a set face. I said he was being dramatic about a dare, that men could not handle strong women. Marianne snorted and said I was right, that men were fragile, and that I should not apologize for living my life. It felt good to have someone say I was not the crazy one. I clung to that. At the park later that week, Ellie ran to the swings while Jonah and I sat on a bench. The sky was pale, the air cool. Other parents nearby watched their kids, some on their phones, some talking in low voices. I noticed one woman glance at me twice, then lean in to whisper to her friend. I imagined they were talking about my outfit or my hair. I told myself they were jealous. Ellie called for me to push her. I stood behind the swing and gave gentle pushes. After a few minutes, her voice came out small and serious. She asked why people at her cousin's house had said I liked Rowan more than Daddy. She asked if it was because of the car thing. My hands froze on the chains. I asked what she meant by the car thing. She said one of the older kids had said I had slept in a car with Uncle Rowan to win a game. She said they all laughed. She said she did not get why it was funny. I told her it was just adults being silly. I said it was a story, not something for kids. I said Daddy and I loved her, and that was all that mattered. She asked if Daddy loved me less now. That question went straight through me. I told her of course not, that grown-ups argue but still love each other. I did not believe my own words, but I needed her to. When we sat back down, Jonah watched Ellie, not me. I told him later that night that Ellie had asked about the car. He closed his eyes for a second. He said this was exactly why he had asked me to be careful. He said it was not just about us anymore. I said he was using our daughter to guilt me. He shook his head and said I was missing the point on purpose. A few days later, we had dinner at a family restaurant with both sets of parents. The long table felt like a small court. Arthur sat beside Jonah. Marianne and Tess sat near me. Ellie was between her grandfathers. There were crayons and kids' menus scattered around, but the adults' faces were tight. At first, we talked about safe things, school, work, weather. Then Tess, already on her second drink, made a joke about bets at the club. She said I had proved my point. The table went still. Arthur looked at Jonah, then at me. He asked gently if what he had heard was true, that I had slept with Rowan as part of some game. I felt everyone's eyes turn. I laughed and said people were exaggerating. I said it was just a dare, that nothing really happened, that we were all drunk. Jonah's jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. Arthur asked Jonah directly if he believed that. Jonah said he believed what he had seen and heard, and that it was enough. His voice sounded tired, not angry. Marianne jumped in and said Arthur was making a big deal out of adult fun. She said people like him wanted women barefoot and silent. She said at least I had options. Arthur stayed calm. He said it was not about options. He said it was about respect, and what Ellie would one day understand. He said Jonah did not have to stay in something that tore him down. He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at his son. I felt cornered, so I did what I always do when I feel trapped. I attacked. I said Arthur was trying to break up our marriage. I said he had never liked me because I was not quiet. I said Marianne knew what it meant to be trapped with a cold husband, and that she, of all people, should back me. Marianne nodded and told Arthur to stop poisoning his son. Ellie, who had been coloring, looked up. She asked, in that too loud kid voice, if I had really picked winning over Daddy. She said she heard someone say that in the kitchen at Marianne's. The whole table went silent again. Her question hung there like smoke. I told her it was just a joke, just words. I said grown-ups sometimes said silly things they did not mean. She frowned and said very clearly that it did not sound funny to her. Then she went back to her drawing, pressing the crayon hard enough to break the tip. While this was happening, Jonah's phone lay face up beside his plate. The screen lit up for a second with a call labeled private. He pressed mute without looking away from Ellie. The call icon faded, leaving only his reflection in the black glass. At the family restaurant, Ellie asked if I had picked winning over Daddy, just as Jonah's phone lit up with a muted call labeled private beside his plate. After that dinner, something in Jonah went from soft to solid. He did not shout that night, or the next. He did not throw the truth in my face every hour. He just moved differently, like a man who had stopped trying to fix something and was now packing it away. I told myself it was a phase. People are dramatic after big fights. I thought he would calm down and come back to normal. I did not really see that this was his new normal. He started sleeping in the guest room full time. The master bedroom felt bigger, with only my things in it. At first, I enjoyed the space. I could spread my clothes on the bed, fall asleep with the TV on. But over time, the empty half of the mattress became its own kind of loud. In the mornings, I would go to the kitchen and find our mugs set in their usual separate corners. His near the sink, mine near the stove. I joked once that we should write our names under them, like in a shared house. He just said he liked keeping things clear. That word again, clear. I was getting tired of hearing it. One Saturday, I woke up to the sound of the front door closing. I checked the time. It was early, before 8. I looked out the window and saw Jonah's car, already leaving the driveway, pointed straight toward the main road. Ellie was still asleep in her room. He had not woken me. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. A text from him said he had taken Ellie with him to get breakfast and then to the park with Arthur. He wrote that they would be back before lunch. It was calm and factual, no apology. I felt pushed out of my own family's mourning. I called Tess to complain. I told her Jonah was acting like a single dad now, sneaking my daughter away to build his own little world. She said he was just trying to make me feel left out. She said I should get dressed and go have some fun of my own. She said maybe I should post a picture with Rowan, just to remind everyone who still wanted me. Instead, I went to the supermarket. Even I know when not to poke a fire. I wandered the aisles, throwing things into the cart without thinking. At the checkout, the cashier was a girl who had gone to the same school where Jonah taught. She looked at my card and then at my face. She smiled in that fake way. She asked if I was Mrs. Hale. I said yes. She said she had heard about the bet, that the kids whispered about it sometimes, that it sounded like something from TV. The person behind me laughed and said, in a low voice, that teachers' wives should know better. I felt my face burn. I joked that people took harmless things too seriously. The words came out thick. As I paid, I noticed a guy in line, holding his phone up like he was filming a day-in-the-life clip. His camera passed over my face for a moment. I wondered if I would end up in someone else's story again, a short side character of shame. When I got home, Jonah's car was back. Inside, the apartment was strangely quiet. Ellie was at the coffee table drawing. Jonah was in the guest room with the door half open. I could hear the soft rustle of paper and the occasional tiny beep from his laptop. I walked in without knocking. The guest room had changed again. On the desk were several binders, neatly stacked. Each had a label on the spine: home, auto, bank, utilities. They were thicker than before, pages full. Beside them lay a small pile of envelopes, flipped so I could not see the addresses. His laptop screen was on. It showed a clean desktop with only a few folders. 2 big ones stood out: Archive A and Archive B. A small pop-up in the corner read, "File uploaded successfully." I watched it fade. I asked what he was doing, even though it seemed obvious. He said he was making sure everything was documented. He said he did not want to rely on memory anymore. He spoke like he was explaining a math problem. On the side of the desk, his phone was face down. I picked it up without thinking. On the lock screen, a photo thumbnail popped up from his gallery, a screenshot of a chat. I saw my name at the top and a part of my message to Rowan, something about only one night in the car and bet one. My stomach clenched. I set the phone down. I said he was spying on me. I said reading private messages was a bigger betrayal than anything I had done. That felt good to say, even though it was ridiculous. He looked at me for a long second. Then he said I had sent those messages on our shared Wi-Fi, on a phone he paid for, in a home where our daughter slept. He said he had a right to know what was happening around her. His calm tone drove me crazy. I wanted him to crack. I told him he was cold and sneaky. I said he was using facts as a weapon. I said he enjoyed playing the victim. He shook his head. He said he was tired of being a fool, not a victim. On his phone, I noticed a muted thread titled Follow Up. Another contact had only an emoji as a name. I asked who that was. He said some people helped him understand his options. He said not every conversation was a secret, but not every conversation was my business now. That stung more than the words themselves. Later, I tried to get him into a classic fight in the living room. I shouted that I had only slept with Rowan once, that it was for a bet, that it did not mean I loved Jonah less. I said he was throwing away a whole marriage over one mistake. I said he was teaching Ellie that relationships were disposable. He waited until I ran out of steam. He did not interrupt. When I finally stopped, he spoke quietly. He said it was not one mistake. He said it was the planning, the jokes, the group chats, the way I laughed about it in front of our families. He said it was letting Ellie hear that her mother had picked winning over her father. He said it was lying to his face in the car when I knew he knew. I told him he could still choose to stay. I said if he really loved me, he would forgive me. I said walking away meant he had never truly cared. That is what I needed to believe, because the other option was that I had done something unforgivable. He shook his head again. He said loving someone did not mean letting them break you over and over. He said he was finished with talking in circles. He said he had been documenting everything, not to punish me, but to make sure Ellie would be safe and stable. He said he would not fight me in the street or scream in front of her. He said there were proper ways to handle this. The word proper made me laugh. I mocked him. I said he sounded like a pamphlet. I asked what he was going to do, drown me in spreadsheets. He did not react. He picked up his phone from the coffee table. As he did, an alarm began to ring, a bright sound in the quiet room. On the screen, the label showed clearly, Paper drop, 1:20 p.m. The time was close. He silenced it with one tap. I stared at the words. I asked what that meant. He said calmly that it meant he had reached the point where he needed more than promises. He said he would handle everything properly now. He told me he would handle everything properly as a phone alarm labeled Paper drop, 1:20 p.m. flashed between us on the coffee table. The morning he said he would handle everything properly, I did not really believe him. Paper, to me, was just paper. Bills, forms, boring things to sign. I still thought the real power was in words, in tears, in the way I could twist a story. He left after the alarm, taking Ellie with him to school. I stayed home, pacing. My phone lit up with messages from Tess, asking if Jonah was still playing the victim and making jokes about the paper drop label. I sent her a photo of the coffee table and wrote that he was trying to scare me. She replied that he would calm down once he realized I was not begging. At work, behind the reception desk at the clinic, I checked my reflection in the dark computer screen between patients. I still looked good. My hair was shiny, my lipstick neat. I told myself men did not leave women who looked like me over one mistake. Not really. Not when they had a child. Not when I was willing to talk. Nadia watched me scroll between calls. She asked how things were at home. I told her Jonah had moved fully into the guest room and was building some kind of paper fort with binders. I said he was trying to act like a little lawyer. She frowned and said, I should not ignore that. She said when men start writing things down, they are serious. I rolled my eyes. I told her it was just a phase. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Jonah. He wrote that he wanted to talk in person that afternoon, somewhere neutral. He suggested the courthouse lobby downtown. He said they had a public seating area where nobody could shout without feeling stupid. He wrote that it would be better for Ellie if we spoke there. Seeing the word courthouse made my stomach twist. I sent Tess a screenshot. She wrote that he was being dramatic and probably wanted to scare me into begging him to stay. She told me to dress nice and act calm. She said men hate it when you look unbothered. I told the clinic manager I had a personal appointment and needed to leave a little early. She narrowed her eyes but agreed. The whole way there on the bus, I stared out the window and tried to decide which version of myself to bring. Angry, soft, funny. I kept picturing Jonah's face when he had said properly. It had been so steady. The courthouse looked bigger than I remembered from the outside. Wide stone steps, tall glass doors, people coming and going with files and stress in their hands. I had only ever passed it on the way to shops. I had never thought of going inside. Courthouses were for other people's messes. In the lobby, everything echoed, footsteps, low voices, an elevator bell. There were metal detectors near the entrance and a line of people waiting to go through security. Signs pointed to family court and civil court and a cafeteria. The air smelled like coffee and paper. Jonah was not there yet, or at least I did not see him. I checked my phone. No new messages. I stood near a tall plant and tried to look casual, like I was just waiting for someone for lunch. People walked by in suits, in jeans, in work uniforms. Nobody paid special attention to me. After a few minutes, a man in a plain shirt and dark trousers walked up to me. He looked like any other office worker. He held a thick envelope in his hand. He asked if I was Morrigan Lark. I said yes, slowly. He confirmed my address and my date of birth. I frowned and asked why he needed to know. He said, in a calm, practiced voice, that he was serving me with a petition for dissolution of marriage and temporary orders for child custody, financial support, and possession of the marital residence. The word serving felt like a slap. He handed me the envelope right there, in front of the security line, where 2 guards and a few waiting people could see. I laughed at first. It was a high, wrong sound. I said he must be joking. He said he was not. He said I had been served and that my response deadline was printed on the front page. Then he turned and walked away toward the elevators without looking back. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The top page had a court heading with our full names. There was a case number, a list of sections. I saw my name as respondent, Jonah's as petitioner. The words blurred for a second. I blinked until they cleared. There it was, in plain language. He was asking for a divorce. He was asking for temporary primary custody of Ellie, for exclusive use of the apartment while the case was open, for child support and some kind of division of accounts. There was a part that mentioned documented extramarital sexual relationship with close family friend, admitted by respondent in text messages and witnessed by multiple parties. I flipped pages, faster and faster. One section laid out a temporary schedule for Ellie. School nights with Jonah, some weekends with me, supervised transitions in public places. It said something about protecting her from ongoing exposure to adult conflict and reputational harm. I hated those words. I hated how official they looked. Someone cleared their throat nearby. I looked up. Across the lobby, near the far wall, Jonah stood with Arthur. They were both in simple clothes, no suits. Jonah held a thin folder against his chest. Arthur had his hand on Jonah's shoulder. They were not close enough to hear me, but they could see me. Jonah's face was not blank this time. It was sad and firm. I marched toward them, envelope in hand. I demanded to know if he was serious. I said he could still tear the papers up. I said this was too far, that he was overreacting to one night and a stupid bet. I said we had a child. My voice bounced off the high ceiling. He did not raise his. He said quietly that the bet had been one night, but the disrespect had been many nights. He said he was done begging me to see him. He said this way there would be rules for Ellie, clear times, clear homes. He said he did not want to fight me in chaos. He wanted structure. I said he was taking my daughter away. He shook his head. He said he was not taking her. He was giving her something steady. He said I would still see her, but not in the shadow of late-night bets and jokes about parking garages. He said this was not revenge. It was protection. Arthur stayed silent, but his eyes were wet. He looked at me like he wished things had gone differently, but he did not step in. That hurt almost as much as the papers. It meant they had decided together that I was the storm to shelter from. An elevator bell rang. Jonah checked the time on his phone. He said he had to go upstairs to file proof of service and then to pick Ellie up from school. He said the dates for the next steps were in the packet. He said I should read them carefully and get advice if I needed it. I asked if he loved me at all anymore. It came out small. He paused. Then he said he had loved me enough to do this the right way instead of screaming or hurting me back. He said that was all he had left. The elevator doors opened. He and Arthur stepped inside. As they turned, I saw my reflection beside theirs in the metal, holding the thick envelope against my chest like a shield that had arrived too late. Jonah did not look away, but he did not reach out either. In the courthouse lobby, the process server put the divorce petition and temporary custody orders into my hands as the elevator doors closed on Jonah's reflection.